What's up, Internet? I'm here to give you a professional FPV pilot's opinion of the FPV drone by DJI in comparison to a freestyle drone. What is the big difference? Should you go HD or should you go analog? We're going to talk about prices today, durability, availability of parts, and the longevity of your purchase. And can you bind other drones to the radio, flight time, flight controller, performance? We're going to do a live flight test in this video, and I'm going to give you like a solid comparison and a friendly comparison. We're not going to bash on DJI in this video, but we're just going to give you an honest and open opinion of the two, price comparison and all that stuff in this video. And hopefully by the end of this video you have a good idea of what the DJI FPV drone is all about in comparison to a standard racing style FPV drone or a freestyle drone in the 5-inch category. Let's go ahead and get started with the first of many comparisons in this video. Here we go. So let's go ahead and get right into it, guys. If you're looking at both of these drones for the first time ever, there are some big differences between these two, and I'm gonna really try to stay neutral here on this comparison, and I'm not going to try to lean too far one way or the other. I'm just going to give you the straight facts. We're going to talk about the motors on these quads. We're going to talk about the flight time, the GPS, the durability. We're going to talk about use of being able to use a variety of props, the upfront cost, can you get crash insurance on either one of these, the performance and the power to weight ratio of both of these. We're going to talk about the flight controller that's on board. Can they have a 4K camera on them? Do they come with LEDs? Do they have interchangeable cameras? That's a big question that a lot of you guys have. And can I use multiple radios with this? In the background back there behind the DJI FPV drone, you see the DJI controller right here. And this is another one. It looks very similar to the DJI FPV drone radio, which is kind of comical. But I will talk more about that coming up. Also, the part's going to be around for a while. And I'm going to talk about the reliability of being able to get parts a year later after you buy one of these drones. And also, can you work on it yourself? And how hard are they to fix in comparison to one another? And what is the range? Most of you guys want to know the range. We're going to talk about the range and the capability of the range for each one of these drones sitting here on the bench. But first, let's go ahead and jump right into Amazon, and I will show you the current price of the DJI combo. We're looking at $948. Now, if you get started in an FPV Freestyle drone with, say, analog or HD, it's going to get you close to around $1,000 once you're all said and done. So the price comparison, I feel like they're very equal to start, but after you get started, I feel like the FPV Freestyle drones are going to be cheaper in the long run because the parts are cheaper. If you break something, you can fix it yourself, and the batteries are much cheaper. So looking at the Diatone Roma F5 that you saw on the screen here earlier, this is the Diatone F5 right here, and the price on that one for an analog version is actually around $300. So that is something to be said in comparison to the $948 for the DJI FPV combo. This does not come with goggles. This price is $299 without the receiver. Okay, so you can get this 4S or you can get it 6S. They're both the same price. You can also add what we fly miles out with is called TBS Crossfire, and that's TBS CRSF right there on this site. So I suggest getting the 6S version. Is it beginner friendly? It can be, because you can also fly this one in stability mode to start, and that's a big question. Modes. The DJI FPV drone has like 3 different modes on here. You can fly stability mode, and you can even click it into manual mode, which in the FPV world we call acro. So can you do flips and rolls and stunts and power loops and things like that, like the freestyle pilots that you see on YouTube? You can do similar moves, but we're going to talk more about how both of them fly in comparison coming up. We're going to do a flight test for you guys. So we're going to do like a real-time flight test so that you can see like the differences, and I'm going to talk about the flight performance of both power systems and all that good stuff. Now the batteries, you're looking at the DJI intelligent battery right here. There's a little LED on top of it that gives you a readout with 4 little buttons right there, 4 little LEDs, and that's cute and everything, but this one's $130, and it says that it's going to give you a 20-minute flight time This battery also weighs 259 grams as it sits. The typical 6S battery is going to weigh about half that, maybe less, and it's going to give you around 6 to 8 minutes flight time on 6S 1300 or even a 1400 milliamp battery. So the price difference in between like the Freestyle drone battery and the DJI battery is massive. $29 for a China Hobby Line 1300 milliamp 6S battery, and that's the premium performance battery. You could even go a little better and get something like the Tattoo R line, which is my choice. That's around $52, still 3 times cheaper than anything DJI makes. So that's a lot of performance, and you will have to have a charger to charge that one up. That is a separate cost. You can get a LiPo charger that'll do 6S for around $70 or so. But massive price differences in these batteries versus DJI battery. And the cool thing is that if you don't like this type of battery, if you try one out, you don't like it, it starts to swell, you can always change up battery brands with these type of FPV race drones. You can't do that with DJI. So that's a huge thing right there. So moving on with more information about these quads, let's go ahead and start talking about the GPS on board. This is a GPS freestyle drone. This is a new genre that's come out the last couple of years. The 5-inch quads, the 5-inch category, we've now started seeing GPS show up on a lot of these freestyle drones. And that gives us return to home. So on the DJI drone, you can't see where the GPS is, but if you look at this quad, on the very back of this FPV race and freestyle drone, this is the GPS right here. Outside of the 300-foot range, it's going to give you return to home, which is super awesome. So you will have return to home there, and that's the good news. So years ago, everybody said, I want GPS return to home on my quad. That's the big thing that I want. I want some safeguard. Well, now you have it with the FPV and freestyle and racing drones. The next thing we're going to talk about is durability and insurance. You can get insurance on both of these. DJI Care is provided through DJI at a yearly rate or bi-yearly rate. You can get that. You can also get repair services for FPV style drones. They do have like a yearly pay-in for insurance on those type of drones that you can do. It will replace parts and repairs. So I'll try to find some of that information for you and put a link down below. So durability factor, this is usually the first thing to break on this drone. It is also not really shaped for a hardcore crash. The FPV style drones, the race drones and the freestyle drones come with replaceable arms. Most of them do, and they all usually carry M2 size hardware. So this is pretty easy hardware to find. You can get big boxes of it on Amazon, and you should be able to get a kit to replace this entire body. If you destroy this entire thing, they make kits. Like this is a kit back here in this box, and usually the kit costs around, say, $30 to $60 for the entire frame. So that is a really good thing. Now, so the freestyle drones are winning as far as the durability factor goes. This one can take a much harder punch, and you can pick it up and fly it again, maybe replace a prop. But most times, these come back and fly again on the same day after a crash or a cartwheel across the ground. If this one cartwheels across the ground, the mass of it, the battery alone, is 259 grams. You're probably going to break an arm on this quad if you have just a field tumble across the grass. So that's a big thing. Durability, again, the FPV race drone wins on durability. The next thing is variety of props. Which types of props can you use with both of these drones? Can you interchange the props? Can you try new manufacturer props? They do make some aftermarket props for the DJI drone, and they also make tons of prop choices for FPV 5-inch category racing and freestyle drones. So you have more options as far as trying a variety of types of pitch, cord thickness, and taper, bullnose versus sort of tapered ends. There are tons of options for this style drone. Now the next big thing that I like to talk about is the performance and the power to weight ratio of both of these drones. Now I went out and flew the DJI FPV drone for you guys today, and I freestyled it as hard, and I sent it. I tried to power loop it, and I have to tell you, as a professional drone pilot, I have some issues with the flight performance on the DJI drone. The motors are not quite as performance enhanced as the freestyle drones. This will turn much faster and will stop on a dime and start going, back to 80 to 90 to 100 miles an hour within seconds. Now, the DJI drone, I have to tell you, it kind of feels like I'm towing a trailer when I'm flying this one. So it feels sluggish. It turns much slower because the tune is softened up for beginners. Even in that manual mode, you also have to activate manual mode by putting your sticks a certain way, and then it will flip into manual mode because they don't want you accidentally flipping into manual mode as a beginner and just crashing your DJI FPV drone. So they do give you that safeguard, which is nice for beginners. But again, if you're a beginner, you could start out flying this one in stability mode, and it's going to give you that same type of feeling. You're just going to go straight ahead, you let go of the stick, and it kind of like auto levels itself in the air. So it is not position hold like this guy has with GPS. This guy has GPS return to home, but not position hold. So that's one big thing to know about in comparison to both of these. Now, the next thing we need to talk about, guys, is the flight controller that's on board. This one has a proprietary flight controller. Now, this is owned by DJI. It does have firmware updates available, and the firmware updates are pretty easy to do. This is going to be Betaflight or iNav. Most people are running Betaflight on these. I believe you can also install iNav on this, but it's going to give you better performance, freestyle performance, if you have Betaflight on there. So USB connector right there. This little door opens right up, and you can connect it to Betaflight. You can add new switches on here and all kinds of new modes. So in comparison, the modes inside Betaflight, you've probably got about 20 different types of modes that you can add onto this quad versus this one. This one comes with that standard 3 modes, and you've got some other types of modes that you can incorporate into this drone, like the Mavic series. But why would you really, if you're flying freestyle or even some type of race drone type cinematography? You want performance out of the drone is what you're looking for in this arena. So the next big thing is, can they carry a 4K camera? So both of these can come with a 4K camera. The DJI drone absolutely comes with a 4K camera on sort of a one-axis tiltable camera here. It's not two-axis, just goes up and down. You have forward-facing sensors there that do not work for obstacle avoidance when you're in manual mode. So it takes that off, and that's why they warn you. This one does not have obstacle avoidance, but you can also incorporate an onboard 4K DVR. So through these types of cameras, they also do have a 4K option. So now on FPV race drones and freestyle drones, you can use a 4K camera, which is fantastic. Years ago, you couldn't. You also have the option to put a GoPro on top of this one. The DJI FPV drone has aftermarket DJI or GoPro mounts, and you can mount one on the front on these 4 posts here as well. So Insta360 cameras, your D-case cameras, GoPros, all that stuff fits on the FPV freestyle drones. Now LEDs, this one comes with built-in LEDs, and some of these do actually as well. The Nazgul 6 and the Nazgul 5 V2 that came out, or the Evoke versions, those have LEDs built into them, and they're pretty cool. You can color change them inside Betaflight, which is also fun. So we talk about the next big thing that people want to do is cameras. Can you change out these cameras? You cannot with the DJI FPV drone. You can add filters on here. Freewell makes filters. You can get filters all day long. You can also get Freewell filters for FPV race drones and the GoPro series cameras. But this lens, this camera, everything here is replaceable. There is a little cord in the back. Unplug it, plug in a new camera, and you're good to go again. So I usually go to the field with an extra camera or two just in case. And most of these are about the same size these days. So I can put some links down below to my preferred cameras, which is going to be the Ratel, Caddx Ratel version 2 is one of my favorites right now. So the next big thing is, can I use multiple radios? The radio thing is kind of big for guys that are flying FPV race drones and racing drones. They want to be able to bind up like multiple quads, because most of us have like a pretty big collection. You can also fly airplanes and FPV wings on this type of radio. This is the iFlight Commando versus the DJI drone radio. It's only going to bind to one drone at a time. So that might be a deal breaker for some of you guys here. This is kind of a dedicated system here versus this one is completely open-ended for having an SD card in here and as many drones and airplanes as you want. You could even drive an RC car off this thing. It's kind of crazy. You can also get 4-in-1
multi-protocol type of receivers, internal receivers for these, or transmitters that can bind to even WL Toys drones. They're pretty much unlimited, and most of them run on OpenTX, which is also open source versus proprietary controller back there. So that's a big thing. The next thing is, will it fly miles away? That's a huge question for a lot of you guys. And I'm just going to flip back over to my screen share here, and I'm going to show you on the back of this Roma F5 version 2 right here. See this antenna on this side right here? This is called TBS Crossfire, and this will send it out miles and miles and miles. So you can probably get about the same range, possibly with a much larger battery on this drone, and you could send it out there for miles. But honestly, I don't fly further than I want to walk to pick it up. That's the way I fly. So, but the answer is, can it fly miles away for FPV racing or freestyle drone? Absolutely. You can do that now. You have that capability, and you have return to home. So it has changed so much in the last 5 years that everything is starting to catch up with DJI's technology. Yeah, sure, DJI looks nice and fancy, but it is also proprietary, and you're locked into one thing. And I'm not being a fanboy here about DJI. I'm trying not to be a fanboy about FPV race drones, but I have to tell you, like, it is nice to know that there are open developers working on Betaflight all the time and adding new patches. New types of innovations are coming out each year as Betaflight develops over the years. So this is a much different animal, and it flies way better, even with filtering. We have ESC, new ESC firmware all the time as well, and things are getting super, super smooth on this side of do-it-yourself, so to speak, drones. And they're becoming less and less do-it-yourself because the binding flies are catching up with the custom-built drones. 5 years ago, you'd have guys show up at the field that would have something way more wicked than a binding fly sitting next to it. So those days are kind of past, and now you can get something that will completely scream over 100 miles an hour for around $300. So let's go ahead now and let's jump into a flight comparison of the DJI FPV drone versus a 6S freestyle drone. Here we go.
Now we can do a side-by-side comparison, and you're going to see pretty quickly here that there is a massive difference between the DJI FPV Drones manual mode, which is kind of a soft way of saying it's their version of acro mode. The tune on there and the rates and everything can be changed, so you can really, really change the performance of this drone, but it's never going to fly like a true 6S FPV race drone or freestyle drone. The snappy response out of the box with the freestyle drone is just going to be way better. For some pilots first learning acro, that can get you into trouble. So, you have to weigh out the type of trouble you're getting in here. So if you get in trouble with a freestyle drone, you might break an arm off the drone, and you could probably replace that arm or do a small solder job and get it back together and flying. I've replaced cameras at the field and put new cameras on the same day and been flying. So you don't unplug one camera, plug in a new one, or replace the lens. The lenses are replaceable. With the DJI FPV drone, you're not going to do any of that. If you break an arm at the field, it's rare that someone fixes it at the field and then gets it up flying again. And as a matter of fact, none of the guys I fly with, none of them fly the FPV drone. And that's not to say that, I only hang out with a certain crew of guys. That's not true. I hang out with all types of people, and I fly with all types of people. So the DJI FPV drone is just not popular in the FPV hobby. So it is not a drone that a lot of my friends want to buy, invest in, or just fly on a regular basis. I have not flown my DJI FPV drone in probably about 6 to 9 months. I actually was dusting off the case for this comparison. It's been in my garage and just sitting there for literally 6 to 9 months. So I've been flying and reviewing FPV freestyle and racing drones for many, many years. So today when I flew it, I was really trying to to give it all I had. And this is me going full throttle. If you really look at the screen on the left, I mean, I am trying some power loops today, but I really was going full throttle on this battery. And I spent this battery out, you know, in probably 6 minutes time. And that's really, really heavy on the throttle. And the thing is that I said this before, when I'm flying this, just look at the left side of the screen here. It is slow and smooth and predictable for the beginners, but at the same time, this is all at a high rate of throttle. This is almost full throttle right here. So you can see full throttle on the right-hand side of the screen. You're going to get a much different reaction out of the drone. So the power to weight ratio on both of these drones, the FPV drone, the DJI FPV Drones, feels like, I told Diego today, this is my friend that I fly with all the time, that it feels like I'm pulling a trailer when I was flying the FPV drone. And here I had multiple attempts to try to do a power loop with this quad. Now, I'm not the best freestyle pilot in the world, and I'm not even that great, but getting the timing right on this flying potato was really difficult. And I've given the FPV drone the sorry nickname of the flying potato for quite some time now, since it came out. But it took me about 6 attempts or more to get that power loop down on these same 2 trees and that light pole that I've done for years. And right here I was coming in kind of late, and I just kind of tucked through there for that one, and a little bit of a victory roll right here, and I finally did it. It wasn't my best one in the world, but man, the performance as far as freestyle goes, if you want to fly FPV and learn how to fly FPV, it's much better to just grab a bind and fly these days, in my honest opinion, to save you tons of money and frustration down the line. You can take that money and spend it on something else, because there's a lot you can spend money on in this hobby, but the fun factor of the FPV Freestyle drone is way higher at the end of the day. And it's cheaper. It's just cheaper, more fun factor, cheaper, and in the long run, you're gonna thank me later. So take my advice on this one. For someone who has over 10 years of experience, I've been honest with my reviews for years, and let's go back to the bench.
All right, guys, thanks for watching that flight test. And if you're with me at this point in the video, you guys have learned a lot, hopefully, because I have a lot to share on my channel. If you want to subscribe, that would be amazing. I do a lot of FPV stuff, and you know, honestly, it's not something that I want to fly all the time. And I gotta say, there's a time, a place, and a drone for everybody. So take this with a grain of salt. If you want to start out here, that's absolutely fine. I'm not trying to, again, I'm trying to be neutral on this. I'm trying to give you the facts, but if you're asking me which one do I lean for, I mean, I lean for the FPV racing drone or the freestyle drone. It's just cheaper and higher performance. It really is. The initial cost is going to be about the same getting into it, I honestly think, but in the long run, these batteries are way cheaper, and you can have a bag of 10 batteries, and you know, have tons of flights for one day. And you can go analog or you can go HD digital, the same as the DJI FPV drone. So you can get that same type of FPV camera system on here, which is cool. Not this setup right here, but one called Caddx Vista or the Air module. And there's new ones coming out all the time, and there's actually new HD cameras coming out, and there's new Starlight cameras, which also help you to be able to see in the dark with the DJI systems, only on these type of drones, which is super, super cool. So I take my goggles off at night, and you know, it feels like it's daytime, and then I take my goggles off, and I'm like, whoa, it's like standing in a black room. It's kind of crazy. So 788 grams on the scale with this beast, and that's with the battery, the 4K camera, the gimbal, everything. All the props are on there. And to be fair, let's go ahead and weigh this one with a battery as well. And quad alone weighs 402 grams, okay? The 6S 1050 there, that's a sort of standard battery. It's 1050 and a 1300. We're looking at 568 there. And let's go ahead and add the heavier camera than a GoPro on there. This is an Insta360 1R with the 360 lens, 686. So you know, we are lighter with a heavier cam on there. You could also put the Hero 8, 9, or 10 on these and get beautiful cinema quality stuff. So there you have it, guys. That is a 2022 comparison between the DJI FPV drone as it sits now, the flight performance, all the different characteristics that this drone has versus a modern 2022 FPV Freestyle or racing drone. In my opinion, this is still the better buy. And that's the absolute honest truth on the channel. I am also a DJI affiliate. So, hey, I'll put that link down below, and I'll put the race links down below for my top 5 5-inch FPV race drones and freestyle drones. So you can check those out and subscribe on the channel if you liked all the info in this video. You will see some hardcore, pure RC action on the Drone Camps channel, guys. Take care. I'm Justin Davis. I'll see you on the next one.